It's hard. It's very hard to see a man like that as he gets older, to be as he is. He's 70 this year, and he's still got a fine stature, and he's still a good-looking man, and he should still be enjoying these years, but he's not really.
This is the extraordinary story of an exceptional man. John Charles was a brilliant defender, a devastating striker, and voted above the likes of Maradona and Platini as the best foreign player ever to play in Italy. At his peak, he didn't need to marry a pop star. He was one. Yet John Charles remains the best footballer you never heard of.
John was one of the greatest players that the game has ever seen.
There'll only ever be one John Charles.
He's one of the greatest footballers, all-round footballers I've ever seen in my life.
John è un personaggio mitologico. In realtà non è stato un calciatore normale, è stato un calciatore straordinario.
I've travelled with him over Europe, and wherever he is, everybody knows him.
I talk to people in England, and they say, John who?
I think if he's English, maybe he'd got more recognition.
Where have you been? You've been living on Mars or something.
In Turin, he's a god.
They wish he was 23 now, and he could come back and play for them.
Se mi dicessero, senti, c'è un John Charles in Inghilterra, verrebbe in Italia solo se tu vai a prenderlo e lo porti in spalla. Io parto, vado a prenderlo, lo porto a Torino.
He's a god. All the football supporters love him, absolutely love him. I've seen men come up to him and go on the knees and cry.
Oh, sì, sì.
William John Charles was born in Swansea in 1931 into a football family that lived on a football street. His talent was spotted early on, and he was a key member of the legendary Swansea schools team of the 1940s before joining the ground staff at the Vetch Field. But Big John never actually played for Swansea's first team because another club had their eyes on him. At the age of 16, he signed for Leeds United, then in the English second division.
I went home and told my mother no, and she says, you can't go. So I said, why? She said, you haven't got a passport yet. You know, for people like who lived in Swansea, she'd never been out to Swansea, so, you know.
Leeds United was managed by Major Buckley, who was quite a big name in football, and he always said he was the greatest player he'd ever seen.
I started off at left half, actually, and then Major Buckley changed me to centre half. And then he changed me to centre forward, and then he changed me to inside right. So I went through all the rigmarole of playing in every position, really.
From the time John Charles played professional footballer, he became a star overnight.
The first time I saw him was actually on a Saturday before a game, and this huge, strong young man walked in, and somebody said, "That's John." Oh,
You couldn't stop. I mean, this guy is something special.
You name whatever was necessary to be a player, and John had it.
John did all the simple things in football. He wasn't a Stan Matthews and twisted and turned. John did everything simple.
The best header of a ball I've seen. When he headed the ball, that ball was solid. Now, with the ball being as it is, he probably head it about 100 yards, probably further than I could probably kick it.
I had quite a few photographs, one with him above the goalkeeper. He was flying in the air above the goalkeeper. Incredible.
I've seen John score goals from the edge of the penalty area. From balls that were played out, he'd pick his button, and I used to swear blind that his head came to a point, you know. And he said, I've got pictures of him with his eyes open heading the ball.
Very poetic in his movements, two magnificent feet. He could knock balls from the middle of the field with either foot. So accurate, really exceptional.
He had everything. He had the height, he had the skill, he was a good passer of the ball, a good defender, good scorer. I mean, what else do you want?
There's never been another Charles for me. He was so exceptional as a footballer. He's 6'2", 14 stone, physically fit then as a footballer. You don't see footballers 14 stone, and he was very quick, you know.
In those days, he was something special, the icon of everybody. We'd all heard of John Charles, even at the age of 20, 21, and even then he was Big John. I never considered myself a player anywhere near the mould of John Charles. At that age, at that time, John was the hero, he was the big man.
Probably the first player to be called the king.
There's only one king in Leeds, and that's without a question John Charles. Everybody loves him.
The name was apt. He was the king. Never be anybody like him.
John Charles became a football sensation. His awesome record while at Leeds simply defies emulation. The big Welshman scored 164 goals in 318 games, yet he only switched to centre-forward in his 5th season at the club. In the 56-57 season, he capped it all by becoming the First Division's top scorer with 38 goals. It was the kind of form that didn't go unnoticed among the continental football elite.
Gigi Peronacci was just about the first big agent that happened. He was an Italian, he was a charming man.
He frequented my public house because he knew John and I were very close. He would get some information through contact with me. He would ask, you know, personal questions about one thing and another. I'm almost positive he came over specifically to watch John Charles.
A scout from Italy, Gigi Peronacci, came up and said, "I want you to go to Lazio, John." So I says, "All right then." He says Lazio was in Rome. So I said, "All right, that's all right with me." And then the next time he came over, he says, "I'm a scout with Juventus now, so it's in Turin, so it's up north." So he says, "That's the club you want to go if you do go."
Contract negotiations were convened at the Queen's Hotel in Leeds. Also present as John's special advisor was a certain BBC football commentator.
It was all done in room 233. All the big wigs of Juventus were there.
When this offer came along of £65,000 for Charles, it was Italy, and there was nobody in this country prepared to give that sort of money then.
It wasn't peanuts way back in the 1950s. It was a lot of money, sensational lot of money.
When John went over to Juventus, it was a world record transfer fee at the time.
Nobody in Leeds wanted John Charles to go to Juventus. They didn't want to lose him, that's why. But they were delighted if it was going to be good for John, because he was an absolute hero in Leeds. This is the relationship that John had with the Leeds supporters. And I think this has been the basis of his success in football. Everybody likes him.
But how would King John be greeted in this new and exotic football domain?
I think it must be difficult for some players to go across these foreign countries, for the Italians to accept them. But I think John was such a pleasant guy that nobody could dislike him.
It was a bit worried at the beginning, you know, what did it be like, you know, the language difficulties and everything, but you soon get over them.
The Italians had this catenaccio form of defence. You know, that was like banging your head against a brick wall.
You were severely marked, and that's why, you know, you didn't score that many goals, because you had to get rid of 2 guys. You don't mind getting kicked when you got the ball. You know, that's part of the game. But I mean, when somebody's kicking you and the ball's like 50 yards away, hey, excuse me. I don't know what the supporters felt about it, but it must have been not very pleasant to watch, because it wasn't creative football. It was purely defensive football. Team scored, you could all go home.
John played like a gentleman all the time, and he showed how to play. He didn't have to knock people down. He could tackle. He could beat a man on the ball. He was just a different sort of player than the Italians had ever seen.
And so in 1957, at the age of 25, John Charles traded the north of England for the north of Italy, and in the process became Britain's greatest football export. It was a journey that changed his life then, and one that he still loves to make 45 years on. But these days, trips to Turin are covered in a shroud.
John has been diagnosed as early Alzheimer's. He's not really aware. John has bladder cancer. 3 years ago he had radiotherapy and chemotherapy, which has sort of kept it in remission for the last couple of years. But at the moment the cancer is back.